Hey guys, it is Wednesday, and today I promised I would be doing my review of Mockingjay Part 2 and my thank you video to the cast. So I'm going to do both of those today, and I'm going to start with the review. There is going to be some minor spoilers, so if you have not seen the movie, I would suggest coming back and watching the video once you have seen the movie, because you should totally go and see it. So yeah, minor spoilers be advised, and let's get started. Alright, for one, this movie was so great. I think it was probably my second favorite in the entire franchise, Catching Fire being my favorite just because that was Francis Lawrence's introduction into the fandom directing, and just kind of seeing the difference between The Hunger Games and Catching Fire, like how the scenery looked and how everything just looked bigger and brighter, and the costuming, the makeup, the characters looked a lot fresher. I don't know, there's just a big difference between the two, and Catching Fire is such a good film. And the franchise, but Mockingjay Part 2 is definitely a very close second. And it's really accurate to the books. If you are able to actually find exactly where it starts, in the book, and from there you can kind of just page through and you go, and it's almost exactly the same in dialogue too. Because I picked up the book and I was able to actually, where it started in the second half, I was able to find that, and then I reread the second half the week that I was going to see the movie, which was its opening night, and I remembered some of the dialogue being directly from the book. I was able to remember it, so awesome job there. And everything was super accurate to the books, and word for word, line for line, scene for scene, everything was right there exactly with the book. So super accurate, and I could not applaud Francis Lawrence and all the people who do all the writing and everything for being so accurate with that. And oh my god, it was amazing. So of course there are some differences between the book and the movie, and I think that the differences that were undergone, the things that Francis Lawrence had changed, or that director, casting, whoever was in charge of that had changed, I think were completely smart. So I want to talk about those. For one, Katniss never has to train to be in Squad 451. She just sort of escapes on a hovercraft and then gets entered into the unit. So there's that. And I think the reason that was done is because you don't really want to be spending all this time proving to the audience that Katniss is not fit to be in combat. I mean, I think you've already proved that to your audience, so to have her going through more combat and more fighting and stuff just sort of seems unnecessary, and it's going to be a lot harder for them to shoot production-wise, to put in all of those extra fighting scenes when you're going to get a lot of that when she actually goes into combat. So I totally think that was smart, for one. Two, the pacing seems a little bit quicker, because in the book I feel like you get more time to process all the character deaths, and you kind of get more time to really understand what's going on. And whereas in the movie, everything's so fast-paced, and a lot of the deaths just happen like that, and so you're barely, if you, read the books, then you're, totally understand what's going on, which is awesome. But, for people who, are just seeing the movies, which you totally shouldn't do that, but whatever. If you're just seeing the movies, deaths happen like that, you barely get, any time to process it, and so it's just, super whoa, but I think that's awesome, because there's so much action, so much going on. It's the characters themselves really don't have time to process who they've lost, because they're never really safe, and I think that was a really awesome element to put in. So yeah, the pacing's a little bit different. One other thing, really, is that Katniss doesn't have as much emotional breakdown as she does in the books. In the books, she's very scarred, and she just kind of wanders off and does whatever, and she's kind of just very broken in the books. Whereas in the movies, she's more put together, and I guess that's because you don't want to be filming all these scenes where you just have a character that's moping around, lying on the ground, she's kind of dead, she feels useless, she just wants to die, she doesn't think she should be alive, she just kind of sees herself as useless, and so having all those scenes where she's just sort of wandering around wastes a lot of time for the people who are watching the movie, because they don't want to see that. They want to see just, constant action in the story sort of progressing. So Katniss never really has any major emotional breakdown until her scene with Buttercup, the cat, and even then her breakdown is very short, and yeah, it's very short-lived, and then that's pretty much it. Okay, another thing too, because I'm trying to think about it and all the stuff is coming to my head. They don't have Dahlia or Greasy say. They are both not in Part 2, so when they're doing the thing with PETA and talking to him about District 12, Prim is substituted in for Deli, and then Greasy Say is just never featured and never really feeds Katniss, never really does that, and that's also partially because they don't want, Katniss isn't really weak at this point. She's probably able, they want to make her self-sufficient, like she wants to cook for herself or whatever, They don't want her to seem very weak because that's not going to do much for the audience. But the people who read the book really know that Katniss is sort of deteriorated and sort of very fallen apart. And that would have been the one thing I would have liked to have seen more, is to have Katniss more fallen apart and more broken, and more sort of seeing more of that emotion and more of that PTSD. But other than that, I think Part 2 was a really, really great film, and that all the changes that were made are logical, and they didn't, screw up the entire course of the film and make it, something completely different and make it something that the book is not. So Francis Lawrence definitely did a good job at going about and figuring what to put in and what to take out. So I give him so much credit for that, because it was amazing. Really, really, really amazing. So, if I were to rate Mockingjay Part 2 on a scale of 1 to 5, 1 star, 5 stars, I would say 4.8, because the only small little bits of stuff is just the fact that I would like to have seen Katniss have more of that emotional breakdown, like I said, and also the fact that I would have liked to have seen a little bit more, would have had a minute, at least just a second or two to sort of process the fact oh, this character is dead. But I kind of completely understand why that happened. Yeah. And there were some scenes and things that were kind of taken out from the books that I would have liked to have seen in there, very small stuff, the fact about her making the book and drawing all the people that died and everything. I would have liked to have seen that. And also maybe having a little bit more, towards the end of the movie, romance between Katniss and Peeta. Nothing like a sex scene at all, but, just sort of, a kiss or something that really kind of establishes that Katniss, does feel she's kind of where she was before. Of course, things are different, but that they're really closely back to where they were before, and that Peeta's stable, and, he still sort of loves Katniss, even though things are still sort of confusing, a little bit fuzzy, but he's better. I would have liked to have seen that established, but other than that, 4.8. It was really, really great, and I loved it. It was my second favorite film, probably, in the entire franchise, and, yeah, I could not be happier with it, so, you have made a tribute happy, and I know there's a whole bunch of other people who've said that they're loving it. Even though Mockingjay Part 2 made the least amount of money opening week out of all 4 of the films, but I don't get that, and I think that maybe because some people didn't see Part 1, and so they weren't going to go and see Part 2, but it's making lots of money, and it's doing fine, and it's the #1 movie in the world. Catching Fire, Mockingjay Part 1, and Mockingjay Part 2 have all been the #1 movies of the world at their time of release, so I think it's doing great in the box office, and I couldn't be more proud of the franchise and what it's turned into. Alright, so that's pretty much it for this review. Totally go see Mockingjay Part 2 at your local theaters and check it out, because it's good, and you're going to cry, and you're going to love it, and it's going to be great. So, so great. So go and check out Mockingjay Part 2 at your theater, and check out my thank you video. I'm going to be posting that in a few minutes, so yeah. Bye, guys!